The flames roared around him like hungry beasts. Ash stood frozen in the smoke-filled hallway, his blind eyes seeing nothing but darkness, the same darkness he'd known for 7 months now. Behind him, a 9-year-old boy screamed his name. Ahead, an inferno blocked the only escape. 2:47 in the morning, Christmas Eve, 2019. This was the moment that would change everything. But to understand how we got here, how a broken, sightless dog became the hero of this story, we need to go back to a frozen garbage dump in May, where that same dog lay dying among the rot and ruin, abandoned like trash by the very people who'd stolen his sight. You see, Ash wasn't always blind, and he wasn't always a hero. He was once a fighter, a victim, a soul the world had given up on. The question is, how did he find his way back? Before we continue, please leave a like and let me know which city you're watching from. Now, let's get back to the story. Let me tell you about Clearwater County, Wyoming, a place where winter doesn't just visit, it moves in and stays a while. Population 3,500, give or take. The kind of town where everybody knows your name, your business, and probably your grandmother's recipe for apple pie, where temperatures drop to 20 below and folks still say, could be worse. It was here, in this unforgiving landscape, that two worlds existed side by side. One was warm and hopeful, the Reeves family home, a modest wooden house on the outskirts of town. The other was dark and brutal, an abandoned industrial complex where Travis Donovan ran his illegal dogfighting operation. Ash was a German Shepherd, 4 years old, with a coat like winter shadows. Born in an unlicensed breeding facility, he was sold to Travis at 8 months for $2,000. Not as a pet, as a weapon. For 3 years, Travis trained him to fight. 37 wins, 2 losses. But Ash had a fatal flaw in Travis's eyes. He wasn't vicious enough. He fought because he was terrified, not because he enjoyed it. That weakness would cost him everything. Then there was Ethan Reeves, 38, whose weathered face told stories he'd never speak aloud. Once a respected police officer, he'd left the force 5 years earlier after a shooting that claimed his partner's life. PTSD followed him home like a stray dog. But that wasn't his darkest secret. From 2015 to 2018, desperate for money to pay for his stepson's expensive therapy, Ethan had worked security for Travis Donovan. He stood outside while dogs screamed inside. The guilt ate at him every single day. His wife, Rebecca, 36, worked as a nurse at the county mental health center. She spent her days healing broken minds, never knowing her own husband was one of them. Her blonde hair was usually pulled back in a practical ponytail, her blue eyes perpetually concerned. She had a gift for seeing potential in damaged things. Their son Noah, 9 years old, had moderate autism and hadn't spoken in 2 years. He was Rebecca's child from her first marriage to a man who died in a car accident. Ethan had adopted Noah, loved him the best he could. But there was always a wall between them, invisible but insurmountable. These were the players in our story. Broken, flawed, human. And in May 2019, their lives would collide with one blind dog in ways none of them could imagine. May 15th, 2019, the abandoned warehouse on the east side of Clearwater County smelled like blood, sweat, and desperation. 50 men crowded around a makeshift ring, shouting, betting, their faces twisted with an excitement that had nothing to do with sport and everything to do with violence. Travis Donovan stood at ringside, arms crossed, watching his investment. He'd put $50,000 on Ash tonight, the biggest bet of the season. His opponent was Brutus, a 95-pound pit bull with 42 wins and 0 losses. The crowd called him the Reaper. Ash knew what was expected of him. He'd known since Travis dragged him from his cage an hour earlier, since he'd seen the cold metal walls of the ring, since he'd heard the crowd's hungry roar. Fight or suffer, win or bleed, there were no other options. The fight lasted 37 minutes, an eternity in that brutal world. Ash fought not from aggression but from pure terror. Every snap of his jaws was survival. Every dodge was desperation. His heart hammered against his ribs like a prisoner beating against cell bars. By minute 35, blood matted his coat. His legs trembled. Brutus was relentless, a machine programmed for destruction. Then it happened. Brutus lunged, caught Ash's throat, and held on. The crowd erupted. Money changed hands. Travis's face went pale as snow. Ash collapsed. The fight was over. When Ethan Reeves pulled up to the warehouse at 11 that night, his usual shift guarding the back entrance, he heard the aftermath. Men filing out, congratulating each other, counting cash. He stood by the door, doing what he'd done for 3 years, looking away. Inside, Travis Donovan stared at Ash's broken body with cold fury. $50,000. Gone. Because this worthless animal couldn't do the one thing it was bred for. "Get him out of here," Travis ordered his assistant, jerking his head toward the back room. "I'll deal with him myself." 20 minutes later, Travis entered the windowless storage room where Ash lay chained. The dog looked up with eyes that still held something Travis had tried to beat out of him, hope. That made Travis even angrier. "You cost me everything tonight," Travis said quietly, pulling an iron rod from a portable heater. The tip glowed red in the darkness. "So I'm taking everything from you." Ash smelled the burning metal before he saw it. He tried to pull away, but the chain held. Travis knelt down, looked Ash directly in the eyes, and said, "You don't deserve to see light." The first burn to Ash's right eye took 5 seconds. The dog's scream was inhuman. The second burn to his left eye took 3. Then there was only darkness and pain so complete it swallowed the world. Outside the door, Ethan heard it. He stood with his hand on the doorknob, frozen. Every instinct screamed to stop this. But fear of Travis, of losing the money, of being exposed kept him paralyzed. He walked away, and he would remember that moment for the rest of his life. At 3 in the morning, Travis drove to the county landfill. It was Christmas Eve, though Travis didn't care about such things. The temperature had dropped to 25 below. Snow fell in thick sheets. He pulled Ash from the truck bed like a bag of garbage and threw him into a ravine of refuse. "Merry Christmas, you useless mutt," he muttered, then drove away without looking back. Ash didn't know where he was. He couldn't see, could barely breathe. The cold seeped into his burned flesh like acid. Every instinct said to give up, to let the winter take him, to end the pain. But some stubborn spark of survival made him move, inch by inch. He dragged himself into a hollow between trash bags. The rotting garbage was warmer than the open air. It smelled like decay, but it meant shelter. That first night, he thought he would die. He wanted to. But morning came, and with it, the need to survive. For 4 months, Ash lived in that landfill. He learned to navigate by sound and smell. Rats became food. Snow became water. The world was darkness. But his other senses sharpened. He could hear a mouse's heartbeat from 20 feet away, could smell rain coming hours before it fell. He learned the geography of the dump by memory, every pile, every hollow, every dangerous drop-off. He created mental maps where other dogs had eyes. The blind dog adapted, because that's what survivors do. They adapt, or they die. May 15th, 2019, evening. The same day Ash had been thrown away like trash. The Reeves family was driving back from town, their old pickup truck loaded with groceries. Rebecca had insisted on making a proper dinner pot roast, mashed potatoes, the works. She was trying to bring normalcy back to a family that felt increasingly fractured. Then the truck died. Just sputtered and quit. Right there on County Road 47, 5 miles from home, with a snowstorm rolling in fast. "Perfect," Ethan muttered, popping the hood. He spent 20 minutes in the freezing wind, checking connections, cursing under his breath. Rebecca and Noah waited in the cab, breath fogging the windows. That's when Noah saw the landfill. It stretched out across the frozen landscape like a scar on the earth. And in the growing darkness, He heard something. A sound so faint it was almost imaginary, a whimper, thin and desperate. Noah opened the truck door before Rebecca could stop him. "Noah! Wait," she called. But the boy was already walking toward the sound, snow swirling around his small frame. Rebecca ran after him, calling his name. She found him at the edge of a trash ravine, on his knees, staring into the darkness. "Sweetheart." "What?" Then she heard it too. That sound. Pain-given voice. She pulled out her phone, turned on the flashlight, and pointed it into the hollow. Two things struck her at once: the skeletal shape of a large dog, and the fact that his eyes were nothing but burned, scarred tissue. "Oh my God," she whispered. Ethan arrived, breathing hard. He looked down at the dog and his blood went cold. He knew that coat, knew those scars. This was one of Travis's fighters. Had to be. "We need to go," Ethan said quickly. "Now!" But Noah was already climbing down into the ravine. Rebecca grabbed for him, missed. The boy reached the dog and did something extraordinary. He sat down beside the broken animal and placed his hand gently on its matted fur. The dog flinched, then went still. Then, slowly, painfully, lifted his head toward Noah's touch, and Noah spoke. For the first time in 2 years, words came out of his mouth. "Help." Rebecca's hand flew to her mouth. Tears sprang to her eyes. "Ethan, did you hear?" "We can't take that dog," Ethan said, but his voice had lost its certainty. "He's a fighting dog. He could be dangerous." "He's dying," Rebecca said flatly. She climbed down into the ravine, her nurse's instincts taking over. She examined the dog quickly, professionally. Severe malnutrition, infected wounds, burns on the eyes that looked deliberate, intentional. "Who could do this to an animal?" she breathed. Ethan didn't answer. Couldn't. "We're taking him home," Rebecca decided. "Help me carry him." "Rebecca, help me, Ethan. Our son just spoke for the first time in 2 years because of this dog. We're not leaving him here to die." Ethan looked at Noah, who was crying silently, stroking the dog's head with surprising gentleness. And Ethan saw something in his stepson's face he'd never seen before: pure, unguarded emotion. Connection. "All right," Ethan said quietly. He climbed down, and together they lifted the dog. He weighed maybe 45 pounds, should have been closer to 80. Light as kindling, fragile as glass. They got the truck started miraculously and drove home with the dog wrapped in Rebecca's coat on Noah's lap. The boy never stopped touching him, as if his small hands could tether the dog to life. At home, Rebecca laid the dog on blankets in the living room. She cleaned his wounds with warm water and antiseptic, counting silently 14 major scars, countless minor ones, 2 deliberate burns where eyes should have been, 3 broken ribs that had healed wrong. "This wasn't an accident," she said to Ethan. "This was torture." Ethan stood in the corner, watching, his throat tight. He knew exactly who had done this, could picture Travis with that iron rod, could remember standing outside that door, hearing the screams, and doing nothing. The dog, this survivor, trembled under Rebecca's gentle touch. Every instinct said run, hide, expect pain. But Rebecca's hands were steady, her voice soft. "You're safe now," she murmured. "Nobody's going to hurt you anymore." Noah sat cross-legged on the floor, close but not touching. He seemed to understand that the dog needed space, needed to feel safe before accepting love. For an hour, the dog lay rigid, terrified. Then, slowly, his breathing evened. The trembling lessened. And when Noah finally reached out to touch his head again, the dog didn't flinch. He moved closer, inch by inch, until his scarred face rested on Noah's leg. "Safe," Noah whispered, the second word he'd spoken in 2 years. Ethan's eyes burned. He watched his stepson, this boy he'd tried to love but never quite reached, make an instant connection with a creature as broken as himself. Two damaged souls recognizing each other. "I'm calling Dr. Hayes in the morning," Rebecca announced. "He needs proper medical care." "Becca, we can't afford—" "We'll figure it out." Her voice left no room for argument. "He's staying." That night, the dog slept in Noah's room. Noah insisted, and Rebecca allowed it, though she checked on them every hour. Each time, she found the same scene: Noah on his bed, the dog on a pile of blankets beside it, both finally resting. Around 3 in the morning, Ethan stood in the doorway, watching them sleep. He thought about Travis, about the money he'd taken, about the screams he'd ignored, about the fact that he'd been complicit in creating this broken animal. And now that animal was in his home, depending on him, trusting him. The irony was almost unbearable. "What do we call him?" Rebecca asked softly, appearing beside Ethan. Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Ask Noah. He found him. He should name him." In the morning, Noah wrote a single word on his drawing pad: Ash. "Why Ash?" Rebecca asked gently. Noah wrote again: "Slower from fire, new life." And so the blind dog who'd survived hell was reborn, given a name, given a family, given a chance. Ash's second life had begun. Dr. Margaret Hayes had been a veterinarian in Clearwater County for 30 years. She'd seen plenty in that time: animals neglected, injured, occasionally abused. But when Rebecca Reeves brought Ash into her clinic that May morning, Margaret had to step outside for a moment to compose herself. "I need you to be honest with me," Rebecca said when Margaret returned. "Can he survive this?" Margaret examined Ash thoroughly, his emaciated frame, the infected wounds, the destroyed eyes, the broken ribs. She ran her hands over scars that told a story of systematic cruelty. When she spoke, her voice was carefully controlled. "Mrs. Reeves, the physical damage is severe, but it's the psychological trauma that worries me most. This dog has PTSD, canine PTSD. He's been conditioned to expect pain from humans. Can he heal? Physically with time, proper nutrition, medical care? Yes. Emotionally?" Margaret paused. "That depends on you. He needs stability, patience, a family who won't give up when the hard days come. And there will be hard days." Rebecca didn't hesitate. "He's got that family." The first month was brutal. Ash weighed 45 pounds when they found him. He should have been 75. Rebecca fed him small meals 6 times a day, carefully calculated to help him gain weight without overwhelming his damaged system. Each meal was an ordeal. Ash would eat only when nobody watched, when he felt safe enough to be vulnerable. He couldn't sleep. 2 hours a night, maybe 3, always alert for danger that no longer existed. He'd startle at the slightest sound: a door closing, footsteps, the wind against windows. His body was constantly tensed, ready to fight or flee, but slowly, almost imperceptibly, things changed. By the end of May, he'd gained 8 pounds. By mid-June, he could walk through the house without colliding with furniture, building a mental map through memory and heightened senses. His hearing became extraordinary. He could distinguish Rebecca's footsteps from Ethan's, could hear Noah's breathing change when the boy was upset. And Noah was the key to everything. The boy spent hours sitting with Ash, not demanding interaction, just being present. He'd draw pictures, read books aloud, or simply exist in comfortable silence. Ash learned that Noah meant safety, that Noah's presence brought no pain. In late June, something remarkable happened. Noah was drawing on the living room floor when he accidentally knocked over his cup of water. He gasped a small sound, but Ash heard it. The dog stood, navigated across the room with careful precision, and nuzzled Noah's hand. Comfort offered, not received. It was the first time Ash had initiated affection. Noah threw his arms around the dog's neck and spoke his third sentence in 2 years. I love you, Ash. Ethan watched from the doorway, something breaking open in his chest, or maybe something finally beginning to heal. By July, Ash was 70 pounds and gaining. His coat, once dull and patchy, grew in thick and healthy. The physical scars remained, always would, but they bothered him less. He learned commands through voice and touch. Stay. Come. Safe. The most important one. When anyone said safe, Ash knew he could relax. The nightmares persisted. He'd wake whimpering, legs twitching, trapped in memories of the fighting ring. Rebecca would find Noah on the floor beside him those nights, hand on Ash's side, whispering, "You're safe now," over and over until the dog settled. Rebecca started a morning routine, a walk at sunrise, just her and Ash. She'd describe everything they passed, painting the world in words since he couldn't see it. There's a cardinal in the oak tree. Ash, can you hear him singing? The grass is wet with dew, smells like earth and growing things. Ash began to trust the pattern of days. Morning walks. Noah home from school at 3, dinner at 6, evening quiet time. Routine was healing. Predictability was peace. Then September came, and with it, trouble. Sheriff Dan Morrison showed up at the Reeves house on a Tuesday afternoon. He was 60, weathered, with the kind eyes of a man who'd seen too much suffering. He'd been friends with Ethan back when Ethan wore a badge. Rebecca, Ethan. Dan greeted them at the door. His eyes found Ash lying in his corner. That's quite a dog you've got there. Thank you, Rebecca said, suddenly protective. Can we help you with something, Dan? Maybe. Mind if I come in? Over coffee at the kitchen table, Dan explained. I'm investigating an illegal dog-fighting operation. Been trying to shut it down for 3 years. The main operator is a man named Travis Donovan. Ethan's cup froze halfway to his mouth. Rebecca noticed, but said nothing. I've been gathering evidence, building a case. Dan continued. And recently, I've been cataloging the dogs that have gone through his operation. Your dog matches the description of one that went missing last May. Missing? Rebecca's voice sharpened. We found him in the landfill, half dead, with deliberately burned eyes. That's not missing. That's attempted murder. Dan's jaw tightened. May I examine him? Rebecca led Dan to Ash. The dog sensed a stranger and pressed himself into the corner. Dan knelt, keeping his distance, studying the visible scars. This dog is evidence, Rebecca. Critical evidence that could help us put Travis away for a long time. Absolutely not. Rebecca's tone was steel. He's been through enough. He's not going to be paraded into some courtroom, traumatized all over again. I understand your feelings, but he's not evidence. He's family. Dan looked at Ethan, who'd been silent through the exchange. Ethan, you're being awful quiet. The dog stays with us, Ethan said, but his voice lacked conviction. Like Rebecca said, he's family. Dan studied his old friend for a long moment. Is there something you're not telling me, Ethan? No, nothing. But there was, and both men knew it. After Dan left, Rebecca turned on Ethan. You knew. When we found Ash, you knew where he came from. Ethan's silence was answer enough. How did you know? I recognize signs, the scars, the way fighting dogs look. That's not an answer, Ethan. But he couldn't give her the real answer. Not yet. Not without destroying everything. That night, alone in the bathroom, Ethan's phone buzzed. Unknown number. The text message was simple and chilling. I know you have my property. Return it, or face consequences. Ethan deleted the message, but his hands shook. Travis knew. Of course Travis knew. In a county this small, Secrets didn't keep long. He started carrying his old service weapon again, just in case. October brought the first real cold snap, and with it, Rebecca's discovery. She was cleaning the basement, organizing boxes they'd neglected for years, when she found a shoebox hidden behind old paint cans. Inside, photographs of Ethan standing outside an industrial warehouse. Checks made out to Ethan from something called TD Enterprises, a notebook with dates, times, and dollar amounts. Her hands trembled as she carried the box upstairs. Ethan was watching football, drinking his third beer of the afternoon. He'd been drinking more lately. She knew why now. "Ethan." Her voice made him look up. She dropped the box on the coffee table. "What is this?" The color drained from his face. "Becca, what is this?" He couldn't lie anymore. The words came out hollow, defeated. "I worked for Travis Donovan. Security. From 2015 to 2018. The room tilted. Rebecca sat down hard. "The dogfighting. You knew about the dogfighting." "Yes. And you did nothing." "I needed the money. Noah's therapy. The medical bills." "Don't." Her voice cracked like breaking ice. "Don't you dare use my son as an excuse for what you did." "He's my son too." "Is he?" The question hung in the air like poison, because from where I'm sitting, it's pretty clear you never really saw him that way. Just like you didn't really see those dogs. You looked away from both. The truth of it hit Ethan like a physical blow. "That's not fair." "Fair," Rebecca laughed, a sound with no humor in it. "You stood guard while animals were tortured, while Ash was tortured. And now he's living in our house, trusting you, and you never said a word. I wanted to tell you. When were you going to tell me you're complicit in animal abuse, that my husband is a criminal?" Upstairs, Noah heard the shouting. He crept to the top of the stairs. Ash pressed against his legs. Through the banister, he could see his parents facing each other like adversaries. "You never loved him, did you?" Rebecca's voice broke. "Noah, you never loved him like your own." "I tried. Trying isn't loving, Ethan. And deep down, he knows it. He's always known." Noah's heart cracked. He pressed his face against Ash's fur, tears soaking into the dog's coat. Ash turned his scarred face toward the boy, sensing his pain, and licked the tears away. "Get out," Rebecca said quietly. "I need you to leave. Now." "Becca, get out." Ethan packed a bag. Before leaving, he stood at the bottom of the stairs, knowing Noah was up there listening. "Son, But Noah was already gone. Door closed. Ash standing guard outside his room. Ethan left, and the house felt simultaneously emptier and somehow more honest. That night, Noah stopped speaking again. He'd built a fragile bridge of words, and watching his family collapse had destroyed it. He communicated only through drawings now dark, fractured images of broken families and abandoned dogs. Rebecca lay awake in her empty bed, wondering how she'd missed the signs, how the man she'd married could have hidden such darkness. In Noah's room, the boy curled against Ash, who pressed close, offering the only comfort he knew how to give: his presence, his warmth, his unconditional acceptance. Outside, in a truck parked 3 houses down, Travis Donovan watched the Reeves house through binoculars. He smiled. A fractured family was a vulnerable family, and when people were vulnerable, they made mistakes. He could wait. He was patient. And when the moment came, he'd take back what was his. Winter was coming, and with it, a reckoning. December 24th, 2019, Christmas Eve. 2 months since Ethan had moved out. 2 months of silence and separation. Rebecca woke early, determined to give Noah a normal Christmas despite everything falling apart. She pulled out decorations, strung lights across the mantel, filled the house with the smell of sugar cookies baking, the motions of normalcy, even when nothing felt normal anymore. Noah helped half-heartedly, hanging ornaments on the tree while Ash lay nearby, tracking every sound. The dog had been anxious all morning, pacing more than usual, whining softly at shadows only he could sense. "What's wrong with him?" Rebecca asked, pausing to watch Ash circle the living room for the third time. Noah shrugged. He hadn't spoken since the night Ethan left. His drawings had grown darker black scribbles that consumed entire pages, families torn apart, houses collapsing. At noon, the phone rang. Ethan. Rebecca's thumb hovered over the decline button, but something stopped her. "Hello? Merry Christmas. Becca." His voice was rough, tired. "I know you don't want to hear from me, but can I see Noah? Just for an hour? It's Christmas." Rebecca looked at her son, sitting cross-legged beside Ash, both of them looking lost. "I don't think that's a good idea. Please. I have something I need to tell him. Something I should have said a long time ago." The desperation in his voice surprised her. "1 hour. Ethan. That's all." He arrived at 6 o'clock with a bag of wrapped presents and a face full of hope and dread. Noah looked up when the door opened, then immediately looked away. The rejection was clear. "Hey, buddy," Ethan said softly, kneeling down to Noah's level. "Can we talk, just you and me?" Noah stared at his drawing pad. Ash positioned himself between the boy and Ethan, protective, alert. "It's okay, Ash," Ethan said. "I'm not here to hurt anyone." They sat in the living room, an unbearable distance between father and son. Rebecca retreated to the kitchen but left the door open, listening. "Noah, I need to tell you something," Ethan began. "And I need you to really hear me, because I might not get another chance." The boy didn't look up, but his pencil stopped moving. "Your mom was right about me. About us. I held back. I was scared." Ethan's voice cracked. "Scared that if I loved you completely, I'd mess it up, like I mess up everything else. So I kept this wall between us, thinking it was protecting both of us. But all it did was hurt you." Noah's hand trembled slightly. "I heard what she said, that you're not really mine. But that's the thing. Son, you are mine. Maybe not by blood, but by choice. By every morning I made you breakfast, every night I tucked you in, every time you needed someone and I tried to be there, even when I did it badly." Ethan reached into his pocket, pulled out a folded piece of paper. "I wrote this down because I knew I'd mess up the words if I didn't. Can I read it to you?" Noah finally looked at him. His eyes were wet. Ethan unfolded the paper with shaking hands. "Dear Noah, I'm sorry I wasn't the dad you deserved. I'm sorry I let my fear make me distant. I'm sorry I did things that hurt innocent creatures. And I'm sorry you found out that way. But I want you to know something." He paused, swallowing hard. "Watching you with Ash taught me what real love looks like. You love him completely, scars and all. You never asked him to be different. You just accepted him exactly as he is." Tears rolled down Ethan's cheeks now. "And I realized that's what I should have done with you. Loved you completely. Without walls. Without fear. You asked me once, through your drawing, if I could forgive myself like Ash forgave people who hurt him. The truth is, I'm trying. I'm going to testify against Travis. Turn myself in. Face what I did. Because that's what real men do. They face their mistakes." Noah's pencil moved across paper. He wrote 3 words, then turned the pad around. "Do you love Ash?" "Yes," Ethan said immediately. "I love that dog, because he saved you, and because he's teaching me how to be better." Noah wrote again, Can you forgive you? Ethan's breath hitched. I'm trying, son. God? I'm trying. Noah stood, walked across the impossible distance between them, and wrapped his small arms around Ethan's neck. The man who'd tried so hard to be a father finally broke, sobbing into his son's shoulder while Ash watched with his blind eyes, somehow understanding that healing was happening. In the kitchen, Rebecca wiped her own tears. She wasn't ready to forgive Ethan. Maybe never would be. But watching Noah embrace him, she realized something. Noah needed this. Needed his father, flawed as he was. She stepped into the living room. Stay for dinner. Ethan looked up, surprised. Rebecca, I'm not saying I forgive you, but it's Christmas, and Noah wants you here. She paused. That's enough for tonight. Dinner was awkward, stilted, but they tried. Small talk about Noah's school, Rebecca's work at the clinic. Then Ethan dropped his bombshell. I talked to Sheriff Dan. I'm going to testify against Travis. Give him everything: dates, names, financial records. Rebecca set down her fork. What does that mean for you? It means I'm turning myself in too. Day after Christmas. I'll probably face charges as an accessory. 3 to 5 years. My lawyer thinks. The room went silent. Noah stared at his plate. But it's the right thing to do, Ethan continued. I should have done it years ago. Rebecca nodded slowly, whatever anger she felt. She couldn't argue with that. Throughout dinner, Ash grew increasingly agitated. He paced, whined, kept going to the basement door and scratching. His behavior was so unusual that Rebecca finally got up to investigate. What's wrong, boy? She opened the basement door, peered down into darkness. Ethan, do you smell something? Ethan joined her. Like what? I don't know. Something chemical. He descended the stairs, checked around. I don't see anything. Probably just mice like last time. But Ash wouldn't settle. He barked short, urgent sounds from his damaged throat, paced between the basement door and the family, as if trying to warn them of something only he could sense. He's probably just stressed, Ethan said. All the tension, me being here, dogs pick up on that stuff. They finished dinner by 9. Ethan prepared to leave, pulling on his coat. Stay, Rebecca said suddenly. The word surprised even her. It's too cold. You can sleep on the couch. Ethan hesitated, searching her face for meaning. You sure? For tonight. Noah needs. We all need. She didn't finish, but he understood. One more night of being a family, even a broken one. Noah was asleep by 10. Ash curled on the floor beside his bed, still alert, still anxious. Rebecca took a sleeping pill. She'd been using them since the separation and retired to her room. Ethan lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, thinking about prison, about consequences, about second chances he might not deserve. None of them knew that 4 hours earlier, Travis Donovan had broken the basement window, that he'd poured accelerant around the old furnace, that he'd set a timer for 2:45 in the morning, when everyone would be deep asleep. Merry Christmas, Ethan, Travis had whispered into the darkness. You took my fighter. I take everything you love. At 2:30, Ash's eyes opened in the darkness. His nose twitched. Smoke. Faint but growing. Every instinct screamed danger. He stood, went to Noah's door, scratched, whined. The boy didn't wake. Ash paced, agitated, then went to the top of the stairs. Below. Orange light flickered at the edges of the basement door. 2:40. The smoke detector in the basement should have been screaming, but Travis had disabled it. The one upstairs was too far away to detect anything yet. 2:45. The timer clicked. The accelerant ignited. The basement exploded into flames. Ash barked loud, desperate, using what remained of his damaged voice. The sound tore from his throat like agony. Noah woke, confused. Ash. Then he smelled it. Smoke, thick and acrid, seeping under his door. He opened the door and screamed, "Mom! Dad!" Rebecca woke groggily, disoriented from the sleeping pill. Smoke. Why was there smoke? Ethan bolted upright on the couch, saw orange light coming from under the basement door. Fire! Rebecca! Fire! He ran upstairs, taking steps 3 at a time. Got to Rebecca's room, found her stumbling, confused. "Get out! Now go!" He half dragged, half carried her toward the stairs. Then horror. Where's Noah? In Noah's room, Ash was pulling the boy toward the door, teeth gentle but firm on his pajama sleeve. Noah sobbed, terrified, but followed the dog's lead. The main stairway was completely engulfed. Flames licked up the walls, eating the old wood like paper. Ethan and Rebecca stood on the landing, trapped. "The back stairs," Ethan shouted. "Near Noah's room, but to reach them, they'd have to go through the fire corridor." The hallway between them and the back stairs was filling with smoke so thick it was like swimming through tar. That's when Ash did something extraordinary. Despite being blind, despite having never navigated the house during a fire, he barked from the back stairs, a beacon in the darkness, guiding them through sound. "Follow the dog!" Ethan yelled. They stumbled through smoke, following that damaged bark, found Noah and Ash at the back stairs. All 4 of them stumbled down, coughing, choking. The kitchen was blocked by fallen debris, flames everywhere. The front door was an inferno. Only one exit remained, the garage. Ethan kicked the garage door with everything he had. Once, twice, it splintered. They burst through, stumbling into the snow, gasping frozen air that felt like salvation. They collapsed in the yard. Rebecca counted heads. Noah? Check. Ethan? Check. Ash? She turned. Ash wasn't there. "Where's Ash?" Noah's voice was pure panic. "Ash!" They turned back to the house. Through the garage doorway, they saw him, going back inside, into the flames. "Ash? No!" Noah screamed. Ethan started to run back, but Rebecca grabbed him. The ceiling chose that moment to collapse, blocking the garage entrance completely. For 30 seconds that felt like hours. There was nothing. Just flames and smoke and the sound of Noah sobbing. Then, through a broken window on the side of the house, something moved. Ash emerged, Ethan's wallet clamped gently in his mouth, the wallet that held their IDs, their credit cards, their cash, everything they'd need. He'd gone back to save it, because in his mind, the pack needed those things. Ash took 3 steps into the snow and collapsed. His fur was singed, his breathing labored. He'd inhaled too much smoke, sustained too many burns. Noah crawled through the snow, pulled Ash's head into his lap. "No, no, no, please. God, no." Behind them, their house burned, lighting up the Christmas night like a sick parody of a Yule log. Neighbors called 911. Sirens wailed in the distance, but all any of them could focus on was the blind dog who'd saved them all, now lying in the snow, fighting for breath. The dog who'd been thrown away, the dog who'd survived hell, the dog who'd learned to love again, and who'd just sacrificed everything to save his family. 3:30 in the morning, Christmas Day. The emergency room at Clearwater County Hospital buzzed with controlled chaos. The Reeves family had been separated upon arrival, each examined, treated, their lungs assessed for smoke damage that could kill days later. Rebecca sat on a gurney in curtained cubicle 3, an oxygen mask over her face. Her throat burned. Every breath felt like swallowing broken glass. A nurse checked her vitals while Rebecca stared at the ceiling tiles, counting them to avoid thinking about everything they'd lost. 47 tiles. 47 white squares between her and the sky where their house had been, 2 cubicles down. Ethan sat shirtless while a doctor treated burns on his hands and face. "Minor," they said. Second degree at worst. He'd be fine in a few weeks. But Ethan couldn't feel the pain. Couldn't feel anything except the weight of Noah's silence and the image of Ash collapsing in the snow. Dr. Richard Torres, 50 years old with kind eyes and steady hands, examined Ethan's chart. "You're lucky to be alive, Mr. Reeves, all of you. Another 2 minutes in that smoke. We wouldn't be here if not for our dog," Ethan said quietly. Dr. Torres looked up. "Your dog. He's blind. Has been for months. But he woke us up, led us through the smoke when we couldn't see, then went back in to save." Ethan's voice cracked. "He went back in. Where is the dog now?" "Emergency vet. They took him about an hour ago. He's—" Ethan couldn't finish. But it was Noah who worried them most. The 9-year-old sat in pediatric examination room 4, staring at nothing, not crying, not speaking, not even blinking, just rocking slightly, rhythmically, like he was trying to self-soothe but had forgotten how. A nurse knelt in front of him. "Noah, can you hear me? Sweetheart? Can you squeeze my hand?" Nothing. The boy's eyes were open but empty. In his lap, he clutched a piece of paper, a drawing of Ash, miraculously grabbed in those final seconds before they'd fled the house. The edges were singed black. They brought Rebecca to Noah's room at 4 a.m. She removed her oxygen mask despite the nurse's protests and pulled her son into her arms. "Baby, I'm here. Mommy's here. You're safe now." Noah didn't respond, didn't even lean into her embrace. He just sat there, holding that drawing, rocking. Rebecca looked up at the nurse, tears streaming. He was talking again, for the first time in 2 years. He was speaking, and now— "It's shock," the nurse said gently. "He's been through something traumatic. Give him time." But time felt like a luxury they couldn't afford. Not with their house gone, not with Ash dying, not with their family splintering apart even as they sat in the same room. Ethan appeared in the doorway, his hands wrapped in gauze. He looked at his wife and son and felt the full weight of everything he'd destroyed. "Becca." She turned to him, and he saw it in her eyes, not anger anymore, but something worse. Exhaustion. Defeat. "Our home is gone," Rebecca said, her voice hollow. "Everything we owned, Noah's drawings, my mother's china, every photo album, every memory, gone. Our son won't speak, won't even look at us. And Ash," her voice broke. "Ash is dying. Because of us. Because of what you brought into our lives. That's not fair. Isn't it?" She wasn't yelling. That would have been easier. Instead, she just looked at him with those exhausted eyes. "Travis burned our house because you worked for him, because you kept his secrets, because you thought you could just walk away from evil without consequences." Ethan had no answer, because she was right. "How do we come back from this?" Rebecca whispered. "How?" At 6 a.m., Ethan drove to the Clearwater Animal Emergency Center. He couldn't sit in that hospital another minute, couldn't watch Noah stare at nothing, couldn't face Rebecca's pain. He needed to see Ash, needed to know if the dog who'd saved them all would survive. Dr. Margaret Hayes met him in the waiting room. She looked like she'd aged 10 years overnight. "Mr. Reeves," she said, "I need to be honest with you." Those words. Nobody ever said those words before good news. Ash's condition is critical. We've stabilized him for now, but his lungs are severely damaged. The smoke inhalation, the heat exposure, the burns covering 30% of his body. She paused. Even if he survives surgery, his quality of life won't be good. He's already blind. The damage to his throat means he might never bark again, might never make any sound at all. And the pain, Mr. Reeves, he'll be in constant pain. Ethan looked through the window into the ICU. Ash lay on a steel table, tubes running into his legs, a ventilator breathing for him. Even from here, Ethan could see the burns, the destroyed fur, the labored rise and fall of damaged lungs. "What are you saying?" Ethan asked, though he knew. "I'm saying the humane thing might be to let him go peacefully. He's fought so hard already. His whole life has been fighting. Maybe it's time to let him rest." Ethan stood there, watching the dog who'd saved his family, and felt like the worst person alive. Because part of him, a small, shameful part, wondered if Dr. Hayes was right, if keeping Ash alive would be selfish, if love sometimes meant letting go. He thought about Ash in that fighting ring, terrified but unable to quit. Thought about Ash in the garbage dump, starving but refusing to die. Thought about Ash learning to navigate a world he couldn't see, building mental maps through sound and smell, refusing to give up even when giving up would have been easier. "He's fought his whole life," Ethan said quietly. "Every single day. He's chosen to keep going. Do I have the right to decide he should stop fighting now? Do I get to make that choice for him?" Dr. Hayes didn't answer, because there was no good answer. Ethan called Rebecca. "They want to know if we should let him go." Silence on the line, then crying, "I can't make this decision. Ethan, I can't." In the background, a small voice, faint, broken, but unmistakable. "Save him, please." Noah, speaking for the first time since the fire. 3 words that changed everything. "Do the surgery," Ethan told Dr. Hayes. "Whatever it costs, whatever he needs, he's family." The operation took 3 hours. They removed dead tissue, stabilized his lungs, wrapped his burns in specialized bandages. They put him in an induced coma for 48 hours to give his body time to heal, while Ash fought for life on an operating table. Sheriff Dan Morrison was solving a crime. Fire investigators found accelerant traces throughout the Reeves basement. Security footage from a neighbor's camera showed Travis Donovan's truck parked outside the house at 11 p.m. Fingerprints on the broken basement window sealed it. Dan found Travis at his compound at 10 a.m. Christmas morning, acting like nothing had happened. "Travis Donovan, you're under arrest for arson and 4 counts of attempted murder." Travis smirked. "Prove it was me." "Already did. Cameras, accelerant match, your fingerprints on the basement window. You're done." As marshals cuffed him, Travis's smirk faded. "That dog is still mine. When I get out, I'll finish what I started." "You're never getting out," Ethan said. He'd arrived just as they were loading Travis into the car. Travis laughed. "How's your conscience?" "Ethan's still clean." Dan turned to his old friend. "What's he talking about?" Travis answered for him. "Ask him who worked for me. Ask him who stood guard while my dogs died." Dan looked at Ethan. "Is this true?" The longest pause of Ethan's life. Then, "Yes. I worked for him. 2015 to 2018. You're going to need to come to the station." "I know. I was going to turn myself in today anyway." By afternoon, the story hit local news. Hero dog saves family from arson. By evening, it had gone national. Blind rescue dog nearly dies, saving family who rescued him. Then reporters dug deeper. They found Ethan's employment records, found witnesses, found the truth. New headline: Hero dog saved former criminal's family should he have. Social media exploded. 2 camps formed instantly. Some people said everyone deserves redemption, that Ethan had saved Ash, had faced his mistakes, had tried to be better. Judge people by who they are now, not who they were. Others said criminals don't deserve heroes, that Ethan had enabled animal abuse for years, that he didn't deserve to be saved by a dog he'd helped destroy. Reporters camped outside the hospital. Death threats flooded social media. Noah saw the news coverage, learned the full truth about his father's past. Rebecca faced an impossible choice: stand by her husband or protect her son. And in a veterinary ICU, a blind dog named Ash lay unconscious, fighting for life, unaware that his story had become a lightning rod for America's debate about justice, forgiveness, and whether anyone who's done terrible things deserves a second chance. The answer, like most important questions, wasn't simple, but it mattered. God, it mattered. December 26th, the day after Christmas. The day that should have been about leftover turkey and lazy afternoons. Instead, it was about survival. Ash had been brought out of his induced coma that morning. Doctor. Margaret Hayes stood by his cage, monitoring his vitals with the trained eye of someone who'd seen too many animals give up. But Ash wasn't giving up. His first response was a twitch of his ears. Then his nose lifted, searching the sterile air for something familiar. A scent. A person. Home. Remarkable. Doctor, Hayes murmured. His lungs are still severely damaged, but he's fighting. They allowed Noah to visit at noon. The boy was wheeled into the ICU in a wheelchair, still recovering from smoke inhalation himself. When he approached Ash's cage, something shifted in the air. Ash, Noah whispered. His voice was hoarse, damaged from smoke and screaming. It's me. Ash's scarred head turned toward the sound. His damaged throat produced a soft whimper. Recognition. Love. Noah reached through the cage bars, his small fingers finding Ash's face. You're going to live, he said with the absolute certainty that only children possess. I know it. And somehow, impossibly, Ash's tail moved. The smallest wag, but it was there. Over the next 3 days, Ash improved in ways that defied medical explanation. He began eating small amounts, could stand for brief periods. His breathing, while still labored, grew steadier. Dr. Hayes called it a medical miracle. Rebecca called it willpower. Noah called it love. Animals who've been traumatized can sense healing in others. Dr. and Hayes explained to the family on the third day. Ash and Noah, they healed each other from the beginning. That bond is stronger than any medicine I could prescribe. Rebecca watched her son through the ICU window, his hand resting on Ash's side, both of them breathing in sync. They saved each other, she said softly. But while Ash fought for life in a veterinary clinic, another battle was beginning in the legal system. December 29th. The preliminary hearing for Travis Donovan's arson and attempted murder charges. The courtroom was packed reporters, concerned citizens, animal rights advocates. What should have been a routine hearing had become a media spectacle. The prosecutor called Ethan Reeves to the stand. Ethan raised his right hand, swore to tell the truth, and felt the weight of 3 years' worth of lies pressing down on him. District Attorney Karen Chen, a sharp woman in her 40s, wasted no time. Mr. Reeves, how do you know the defendant? I worked for him, security, from late 2015 through early 2018. And what kind of business was Mr. Donovan running? Ethan looked directly at Travis, who sat at the defense table with his expensive lawyer, smirking. An illegal dog-fighting operation. The courtroom murmured. Travis's smirk faded slightly. And you knew this was illegal? Yes, ma'am. Yet you continued working for him. Why? Ethan's throat tightened. I needed money. My stepson required expensive therapy. I was desperate. But that's not an excuse. I knew what was happening to those dogs, and I did nothing to stop it. Can you describe what you witnessed? For the next hour, Ethan detailed everything. The fights, the injuries, the dogs that died, the money that changed hands. He provided dates, names, amounts. His testimony was damning and thorough. Travis's lawyer tried to discredit him. Mr. Reeves, isn't it convenient that you're testifying now, after your own crimes have been exposed? Isn't this just an attempt to reduce your own sentence? No, sir. Ethan's voice was steady. I'm testifying because it's the right thing to do. I should have done it 3 years ago. The fact that I'm facing charges too doesn't change the truth of what Travis Donovan did. And one of those dogs, the one called Ash, currently lives with you. Correct. Yes. How much is that dog worth? Mr. Reeves, if Travis is convicted and you keep the dog, what's your financial gain? Ethan's eyes blazed. That dog isn't property. He's family. And he nearly died saving us from a fire your client started. The judge banged her gavel. Mr. Reeves, please, just answer the questions asked. But the damage to the defense was done. Ethan's raw emotion, his willingness to incriminate himself, lent credibility to every word. By the time testimony concluded, Travis's case was in ruins. Financial records matched. 15 other witnesses had come forward. The evidence was overwhelming. But then came the complication. After testifying against Travis, Ethan himself was charged as an accessory to animal cruelty. The prosecutor recommended 3 to 5 years in prison, despite his cooperation. The judge, Margaret Blackwell, 62, known for harsh sentences, set Ethan's sentencing for December 30th. Mr. Reeves, you've been honest today, but honesty doesn't erase 3 years of complicity. I'll consider your testimony, but you will face consequences. That night, Rebecca visited Ethan at the motel where he'd been staying. They sat in his truck in the parking lot, not quite ready to be together but not willing to be apart. I don't know if I can forgive you, Rebecca said, but I watched you on that stand today. You didn't make excuses. You just told the truth. It's the least I could do. Noah wants you at the next hearing. He's prepared something. Ethan looked surprised. He wrote a letter to the judge about second chances. December 30th, the victim impact hearing. The courtroom was even more crowded than before the story had gone national. Blind Hero Dog was trending on social media, but what people really wanted to see was whether Ethan Reeves would go to prison. Judge Blackwell called for victim impact statements. The prosecutor stood to read statements from animal welfare organizations. Then Rebecca wheeled Noah to the front of the courtroom. The boy looked so small there, dwarfed by the legal system, by the weight of adult decisions and consequences. He held a piece of paper in trembling hands. Your Honor, Rebecca said, my son has prepared a statement. Due to his autism, he's written it down. May the bailiff read it. Judge Blackwell nodded, her expression softening slightly. Of course. The bailiff took the letter, cleared his throat, and began to read. Noah had titled it, What Ash Taught Me About Forgiveness. My name is Noah Reeves. I'm 9 years old. I have autism, so talking is hard. But this is important. So I wrote it down. The courtroom was absolutely silent. Ash is my best friend. He's a blind dog who was hurt really bad by really bad people, including the man who's my dad. People shifted uncomfortably. Judge Blackwell leaned forward. Ethan isn't my real dad by blood. My real dad died when I was little. Ethan chose to be my dad, but I always felt like he was only doing it because he had to. Like I was a job, not a son. Ethan closed his eyes, the words cutting deep. When we found Ash, he was almost dead. Mom said we should save him. Ethan didn't want to at first, but he did it anyway. And then Ash saved us. Saved me. Saved Ethan. Even though Ethan was part of hurting him. The bailiff's voice wavered slightly, emotion creeping in. People say Ethan doesn't deserve to be saved by Ash. That he should go to prison. Maybe they're right. But here's what I know: Ash doesn't think like that. Ash loves without judging. When our house was on fire, Ash didn't think, should I save Ethan because he was bad before? He just saved him, because that's what family does. Several people in the courtroom were crying now. Judge Blackwell removed her glasses, wiping them carefully. If Ash can forgive, why can't people? Ethan did bad things, but he's trying to be good now. He's telling the truth. He's facing his mistakes. Taking him away won't make the past better. It'll just hurt our family more. And we've already lost our house. We almost lost Ash. Please don't make us lose Ethan too. The bailiff read the final line. Everybody deserves a second chance. Even blind dogs who were fighters. Even dads who made mistakes. Love means giving chances. Ash taught me that. Please let Ethan have his chance. Love. Noah. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Judge Blackwell banged her gavel for silence. But her eyes were wet. Rebecca stood, put her hand on Noah's shoulder. The boy looked directly at the judge and did something nobody expected. He spoke aloud, his voice small but clear. Please don't take my dad. It was the most words he'd spoken in public in 3 years. The video footage, allowed for this hearing, went viral within hours. 9-year-old's plea changes everything. By nightfall, it had 20 million views. The comment sections exploded. Public opinion, which had been split, began to shift. Letters poured into Judge Blackwell's chambers, thousands of them, all requesting leniency, from all 50 states, from people who'd never met the Reeves family, from children who'd heard Noah's words and seen their own struggles reflected back. A local church launched a GoFundMe, help the Reeves family rebuild. The goal was $50,000. By midnight, they'd raised $200,000. Ash became more than a dog. He became a symbol of resilience, of forgiveness, of the kind of love that doesn't keep score. And as the year drew to a close, the question everyone was asking wasn't whether Ethan deserved punishment. It was whether punishment or restoration better served justice. Judge Blackwell would have to decide. But the world was watching, and hoping, and believing. Perhaps for the first time in a long while, that second chances weren't just possible. They were necessary. January 15th, 2020, 3 weeks after Noah's letter, 3 weeks of national attention, public debate, and 10,000 letters sent to Judge Margaret Blackwell's chambers. The courtroom was standing room only. Reporters lined the walls. Outside, supporters held signs, second chances for Ethan and justice with mercy. Judge Blackwell entered, her face unreadable. She'd spent 3 weeks reviewing case law, reading letters, and wrestling with a decision that would define her career. At 62, she'd sentenced hundreds of criminals. But this case was different. Mr. Reeves, please stand. Ethan rose. Rebecca held Noah's hand in the front row. The boy's eyes were fixed on his father. Mr. Reeves, you were complicit in animal cruelty for 3 years. You stood by while innocent creatures suffered. The law demands punishment for such actions. She paused. But justice. Justice asks what serves society best. The courtroom held its breath. I've read your son's letter. I've read 10,000 others. I've watched a 9-year-old boy speak publicly for the first time to defend you, and I've considered the remarkable story of a dog who forgave the unforgivable. Judge Blackwell looked directly at Ethan. This case has challenged every assumption I hold about justice, because the easy thing would be to send you to prison. But I don't believe that serves anyone, not the animals, not your family, not society. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Therefore, I sentence you to 5 years imprisonment suspended. You will serve 10 years probation, 1,000 hours of community service at animal shelters. You will speak at schools about the consequences of moral cowardice. You cannot own firearms, and you will continue therapy for PTSD. Rebecca gasped. Noah's face lit up. But make no mistake, Mr. Reeves, this is your one chance. One mistake, one violation, and you will serve the full 5 years. Use this opportunity to become the man that dog believed you could be." Ethan's voice broke. "Thank you, Your Honor. I won't waste it." Judge Blackwell wasn't finished. "As for Travis Donovan," she turned to where Travis sat, his expensive lawyer beside him, "you will serve 28 years in federal prison. No parole eligibility for 20 years. You are banned from owning animals for life. And you will pay $500,000 in fines and restitution." Travis's face went purple. This is justice. Mr. Donovan, take him away." As marshals led Travis out, he locked eyes with Ethan. This isn't over. But it was, and everyone knew it. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Ethan held up a hand. "I don't deserve your attention. The real hero is a blind dog who taught us all about forgiveness. That's the story you should tell." February 2020, 6 weeks after the fire. 6 weeks of Ash in veterinary care, fighting his way back to health. Doctors Margaret Hayes called the Reeves family on a Tuesday morning. "He's ready to come home." They arrived at the clinic within an hour. Ash stood in the recovery kennel, thinner than before, his fur patchy where burns had healed, but his tail was wagging. When Noah entered the room, Ash's ears perked up. He navigated toward the boy's voice, stumbling slightly but determined. Noah dropped to his knees, and Ash collapsed into his arms. "Good boy," Noah whispered. "Good boy, Ash." The family was staying in a small rental house. Insurance was still processing their claim. It was cramped, simple, nothing like what they'd lost. But when Ash walked through the door, sniffed the unfamiliar rooms, and found Noah's new bedroom, it became home. That first night back, they established new routines. Rebecca walked Ash each morning, describing the world he couldn't see. "The snow is melting. Ash, spring is coming. Can you smell it?" Noah read to Ash every afternoon, his voice growing stronger with each passing day. And Ethan. Ethan helped Ash with physical therapy exercises, rebuilding strength in damaged muscles. During those quiet sessions, Ethan would talk about his mistakes, about being better, about second chances. Ash couldn't answer, but his presence was answer enough. March 2020. 3 months after the fire, the community came together in ways that restored faith in humanity. Volunteers from across Wyoming gathered to build the Reeves family a new house, a ranch-style home with no stairs, textured floors to help Ash navigate, and a fenced yard with scent markers at each corner. Rebecca used the donated funds, now exceeding $300,000, to establish Ash's Hope Second Chance Rescue. The nonprofit was housed in a converted barn on their property, dedicated to rescuing fighting dogs and matching them with trauma survivors. Ethan completed his first 300 hours of community service. He worked at the county animal shelter, cleaning kennels, feeding dogs, and speaking with anyone who'd listen about the cost of looking away from suffering. He visited 25 schools, telling his story to auditoriums full of teenagers. "I made choices that hurt innocent creatures," he'd say. "And I lived with that guilt every day until it nearly destroyed my family. Don't be like me. Speak up. Do the right thing, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." Noah returned to school and, for the first time, made friends. He still preferred few words, but he spoke when it mattered. Kids asked about Ash, and Noah would smile. "He's a hero," he'd say simply. "He saved us." His teacher asked what he wanted to be when he grew up. Noah wrote on his paper, veterinarian, like Dr. Hayes, to help dogs like Ash. March 15th, exactly 1 year since they'd found Ash in that frozen landfill. The family gathered in their new home, small by some standards, but perfect for them. Rebecca had baked a cake, a dog-friendly one for Ash, chocolate for the humans. They'd bought Ash a new bed, his name embroidered in blue thread. He lay in a sunbeam streaming through the window, content and peaceful. Noah sat beside him with his sketch pad, drawing. The image took shape slowly, 4 figures holding hands, a man, a woman, a boy, and a dog. In Noah's drawing, Ash had wings, at the bottom, in careful handwriting. Noah wrote, "Angels don't always have eyes. Sometimes they have paws." Ethan looked over his son's shoulder. "That's beautiful. Noah." "It's true. Dad, Ash is our angel." Ash's tail thumped against the floor, that slow, steady rhythm that meant happiness. Rebecca joined them, wrapping her arms around both. The four of them sat in the sunlight, together, whole, outside. Spring was coming to Wyoming. The snow was melting. The world was turning green again. Everything was beginning anew. Because that's what second chances are, new beginnings, fresh starts. The opportunity to become who you were always meant to be. They say a dog is man's best friend, but Ash was more than that. He was a reminder that love doesn't see scars, that forgiveness doesn't need eyes, that home isn't where you start, it's where you're chosen. And sometimes, the ones we save end up saving us right back. Ash lived happily with the Reeves family for 8 more years. He passed peacefully in his sleep on April 3rd, 2028, surrounded by the people who loved him. Noah became a veterinarian specializing in trauma recovery. Ethan completed his probation and ran Ash's Hope full-time, helping over 500 dogs find homes. Rebecca continued her work, healing both people and animals. But the story didn't end there, because Ash's legacy lived on in every dog rescued, every second chance given, every person who learned that redemption is always possible, even in darkness. Even when you can't see the path forward, even when the world has given up on you. Love finds a way. Love always finds a way. This story carries a truth we all need to hear. Family isn't defined by blood, but by who shows up when the world turns dark. The Reeves family was fractured, broken by secrets and pain. Ash was discarded, brutalized, left to die in a frozen wasteland. Yet together, they found something neither could find alone: redemption. Ash taught them that gratitude isn't just about saying thank you. It's about showing up, about loving without conditions, about forgiving the unforgivable, because holding on to anger only imprisons the one who carries it. Ethan learned that being a father isn't about biology, it's about choice. Every single day, choosing to love, to be present, to do better than yesterday. Rebecca learned that healing takes courage, and sometimes the strongest thing you can do is give someone another chance. And Noah learned that his voice matters, that speaking up, even when it's hard, can change everything. The question for you, dear reader, is this: have you ever witnessed injustice toward an animal, a person, someone vulnerable, and stayed silent like Ethan did? What stopped you from speaking up? And if you could go back, what would you do differently? Share your story below. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is admit when we looked away.